Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and welcome to this new IMA webinar on continuous manufacturing of pharmaceutical. My name is Salvatore Mascia. I'm the founder and CEO of Continuous Pharmaceutical. Today, I would like to give you an update of the implementation on our end-to-end continuous manufacturing system. Our facility is located in Woburn, Massachusetts, and we have built together a very skilled set team of people who has a specific skill on continuous manufacturing, starting from flow chemistry, reaction engineering, crystallization scientists, and drug product formulator. A team built with specific skill set on continuous manufacturing. Our approach to continuous manufacturing has been very different with the current approaches in this space. And the key differentiation is based on the integration and the novel technology. There's many companies who have actually implemented continuous manufacturing as a single-step process, like a continuous flow chemistry, if you like, or a continuous granulation in the drug product. Other companies have implemented continuous manufacturing, integrated multiple steps in the synthesis of an active pharmaceutical ingredient, or multiple steps in the drug product. Whereas what we're trying to do here is going end-to-end, meaning integrated chemical operation and formulation on one single line that is fully automated and is represented by this point C here into this diagram. This is our pictorial representation of the end-to-end continuous manufacturing system, meaning that we are feeding raw material from one end of the process. We are making reactions that occur one after the other, including separation. We do crystallization, we do filtration, a dry of an API, and this API again is formulated directly into the final dosage form, as you can see here from the pictorial vision representation. So there is end-to-end integration of the units. We are not isolating intermediate, we're not isolating API, and the process is fully automated. The control strategy is key. So as you can see here from this diagram, we have basically integrated the whole system. We need to understand all the critical process parameters of each unit operation, relate this with the quality attribute of the product, and we make use of process analytical technology to actually measure this quality attribute in line directly and activate the real-time basically monitor and control on the process to make sure that the final quality attribute of the final product is always of very high quality. So up to now, I explained you the theory behind our process. Now I'm going to show you the real implementation of the first of its kind end-to-end continuous manufacturing pilot process in Woburn, Boston. This is the ICM facility floor plan. So the process is enclosed within those rectangular boxes. Starting from the top left corner, we have a dissolution enclosure where we take the raw material, we dissolve the raw material into basically a mixing tank, and then this is moved forward into a clarification step. From the clarification step goes into a continuous reaction module, continuous crystallization, continuous filtration, continuous drying, and then into EMC, which stands for extrusion molding coating, which is our final machine to produce coated tablets. The last step is the solvent recovery enclosure. We basically take the solvent from the continuous filtration, the vapor from the continuous dryer, and basically we clean the solvent and we recover the solvent in a full loop control, such that there is a minimum utilization of solvent, which also significantly impacts the economics of our process. This is an actual picture of the system. It's very compact, occupy roughly between 20 to 25 meters square footprint. But with this, we can produce up to 30 metric tons of an API a year. So it's amazing as we think about how much product we can produce in such a small footprint. And the advantage in general are great in terms of significantly reduced production time, reducing cost, and obviously producing product with very high quality assurance. So now I would like to guide you step by step, unit operation by unit operation from beginning to the end. We'll start with the feeding system. So the two chemical ingredients here are fed into the process through a vacuum conveyor and two precision gravimetric feeders, which ensure very precise metering of these two reactive material into our pre-reaction mixture. These slides actually show how precise is our system in dosing the chemical intermediate. You can see that there is very good agreement between the set point and the actual value of the feeding material 1 and feeding material 2 into our process. The next unit operation is our continuous clarification bypass. This is very important to remove solid impurity from the raw materials. This is basically a system of two filters in parallel, filter A and filter B. And we basically run the pre-reaction mixture to this filter to basically remove the solid impurity. As the solid impurity builds up on one of these filters, we build pressure. And so at a certain point, we basically divert the flow to the second filter, to filter B, such that we never interrupt the actual flow to our reactor. Now I want to show you some of the data. These are the data from our clarification bypass system. You can clearly see the sequence of alternation between filter A and filter B, which happen at specific cutoff pressure, which we basically set by us when you develop the process. And you can also see from the plot on the bottom that this system is very effective to remove basically the solid impurity. We do this by measuring turbidity, and you can see that the NTU grows from 6 to actually 0 post-filtration. So it's a very effective system to remove the solid impurity. Our continuous reactor system is very modular and built on customized need. In this case, we are presenting you a CSTR, a continuous stir tank reactor, in 5 stages. So in the first stage, we have the reaction set and then continues with the crystallization. The final stage, the 5th stage, is fully dedicated to crystallization. Reaction has been already completed, and it's in this point that we actually utilize our PAT, process analytical technology, to show the progress of the reaction and also measure the chord length distribution of our particle of the API. And these measurements are done into the 5th vessel real time. These are some of the data which we also actually published. You can see how well we can actually control the temperature across the 5 stages. In the second, the plot in the middle, you can see how the reaction yield increase from the 1st stage to the 4th stage. And then there is no difference between the 4th stage to the 5th stage because the reaction is complete in the 4th stage, and we only increase the yield of the crystallization in the last stage by decreasing the temperature. And we can also get a very high crystallization yield. As you can see, it's around the 97.3%. This data from the PAT also indicate that we are able, in real time, to basically monitor the reaction performance. And we have seen that when our react-IR indicates value of our feeding material number 1 greater than 3.5, means that the reaction is not complete. So we know that the process has to be adjusted itself to basically produce the required API material. Also, at the same time, we can measure the chord length distribution of our active into the 5th vessel by using FBRM. Here are the data that demonstrate that we can actually track this chord length distribution across the 5 stages of our system. The next step into the process is to describe you our continuous filtration system. Once the API has been formed, it's transferred onto our continuous filtration system, which basically is a rotating porous disc. This disc can be in stainless steel or vast alloy, basically different material depending on the characteristic of your product. As well, we can choose different pore sites of this disc based on the particle size distribution of the active that we're actually processing in this case. This is a very flexible technology. It's basically a thin film filtration. We can use different solvent to actually clean the slurry and turn to be very effective. Post filtration, the material is basically conveyed into a resuspension vessel where we are going to do additional PAT measurement using react-IR to look at the specific concentration of our reactive material and other impurity, as well as one of the key solvents that we use into the process, which is difficult to be removed from the dryer. And now I want to show you some of the data on our continuous filtration system. The plot on the left side shows the impact of the crystallization temperature on the API purity. When you think about integrated process, this is very important. In fact, you can see that between 20 to 40 hours of our time of operation, Two of the key impurities are out of specification. They cannot be filtered because they are not in solution. So what we're doing here, we are increasing the crystallization temperature to put this impurity in solution and make them easily filterable. You can see that after 60 hours and above, all the impurities are within specification. The plot on the right instead shows you the effectiveness of our washes. So we have tested different wash ratio to basically remove all the impurity from our wet cake. And you can see that the system is controllable, and wash ratio above 6.3 ml per minute bring all the impurity within the specification limits. We can track this phenomenon real time using the PAT which I described to you before. Here we see the application of the React IR to basically monitor initially the concentration in the resuspension vessel of one of the key unreactive material, which we call it the feeding material number 1. What we did in this first case, we took the powder of the API post-drying, we did HPLC on this, and then we matched this with the React IR data in the resuspension vessel, and you can see that there is a very good agreement. Similarly, we compare our data of the GC for one of our key solvent S1, and we match this with the concentration of the residual solvent, and you can see that both React IR concentration and the GC give us a very good matching. This allows us really to real-time monitor and control our process in terms of purity and tracking this solvent, which is difficult to remove into the dryer. Post-filtration, we are going to continuously dry our API with our continuous drum dryer under vacuum. So basically this machine operates by heating the roller, the surface of the roller, so it's conduction heating, but at the same time it's under vacuum. So allow us to really dry the API using very low temperature without avoiding any issue of degrading API, but being also very effective. In like a few minutes, we can get like powder with the required solvent specification below hundreds of ppm. We're going to show you some of the data. Post-dryer, the material flows into a cyclone separation as well as an airlock, where we are going to perform a PAT measurement for residual solvent, crystallinity, and particle size distribution. And for this, we basically use an NIR, an inline Raman, and as well as an Incitec from Malvern for the distribution of the particle. Here's some of the data that I want to show you. The plot on the left basically indicates that over 100-hour operation, we continuously have our residual solvent, both solvent here, S1 and S2, into the required specification, which is great. The second plot on the right indicates that we can actually also control the particle size distribution as we dry the API. And this is a very important feature of our continuous drying technology, because we can apply a specific control load on our crystal to actually change the particle size distribution real time. That's what this plot shows you initially. So this reported the percent of particle below 250 micron, and you see that as we increase the drum load, we are basically decreasing the particle size until a certain point where compaction then occurs, and so the particle become larger again. So this is a point to show you that by controlling the load applied on the crystal, we can obtain different particle size distribution real time. Here is again some of the PAT data real time that we have used. This is the Raman, by which we can basically identify the specific drug compound, and by tracking the evolution of the API crystal peak, we can make sure that we produce the right crystal form over the duration of the process. Similarly, we use NIR to monitor the residual solvent content into the process. Again, we're using two solvents here. We are referring as S1 and S2. You can see that in both cases, we have a very good agreement between the NIR and the GC. Lastly, on the PAT of the dryer, we use the inline Malvern to measure the particle size distribution of the API, and this also matches very well the data produced with the offline laser diffraction technique. At this point, we're basically ready for real-time release of the powder, because we have performed inline all the necessary testing that we need on the powder. The powder of API now flows into our drug product unit operation, which we refer as extrusion, molding, coating, or 3-in-1 drug manufacturing process. So the beauty of this system is that it takes extrusion feature, injection molding feature, and injection coating, and put all of these in one single machine. We have effectively utilized this in many projects, and this is some of the key features that you need to look at in order to develop the process. So we have been using this technology with many different polymers and the plasticizer ratio. We have been able to increase drug load up to 80%, which is obviously very high in this case, and also we can manufacture API in its crystal state or amorphous. So by basically changing your processing condition, your parameter and your polymer, you can develop different formulation with this technique, which is very versatile. The last stage into our process is a solvent recovery system. These are basically 3 thin film evaporators that are connected to each other and allow us to recover both solvent with very high purity and high yield. Let's take a look at some of the data. So these are the data that indicate that the solvents are very pure. As you can see from the plot on the left, the purity is always very high over the 80-hour CRO operation. And similarly, on the plot on the right-hand side, you can see the very high recovery yield for both solvents. One is 94.9, another one is 98.3. So again, these processes are proving to be very efficient in the recovery of a high purity solvent. I've described you how the process works technically, but now let's take a look at some of the key advantages when you implement such a process commercially. I want to show you a case study for a high volume generic. As you can see from these slides, all the target product profile were actually met. We were able to reduce the cost between 30 to 35%, reducing the number of unit operation by 80 and 85%, reduction on solvent usage greater than 60%, major energy saving between 50 and 60%, and finally a major reduction in footprint by roughly 90%. So really with this technology, the future of pharmaceutical manufacturing is a very efficient miniaturized plant that produce product very fast in a very reduced footprint. This leads to my conclusion for today is that integrated continuous manufacturing will greatly transform this industry. We significantly reduce the cost of pharmaceutical between 30 to 50%, greatly reduce the lead time of producing this product, greater than 90%, and we will have a much better quality through inline monitoring and control of our system because we build the quality directly into our process. The system is very flexible and modular. We can produce several different dosage forms, API with different physiochemical property, and also we use a fully automated system, again, which allows the real-time monitoring of the system through the implementation of PAT, which I show you today, and allow for also a model-based control because we have a model that operates real-time during the manufacturing process. The status of our system is that our pilot plant is fully operational. That was our main goal of this webinar today. But we have also initiated work with US FDA to actually use this system to inform future regulatory guidelines on continuous manufacturing. Our plan for this year is now basically transitioning into cGMP manufacturing. We want to move from process development to actual cGMP implementation, and that's what we are actively working today. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this webinar on continuous manufacturing and you find this presentation of interest. Look forward to talk to you very soon.